Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar, part one of a seven-part series, part one of seven of a series of webinars I'll be presenting. Today we'll be discussing Microsoft 365 and getting the most out of your subscription. My name's Andrew Rigg. I'm a solution architect at Perfect Image, and my focus is around public cloud and hybrid environments. Perfect Image is a managed service provider in the northeast of the UK. We've been providing consultancy services to a wide-ranging base of clients for over 25 years. We're a consultancy-led business with over 90 IT professionals across three business units, being business intelligence, business systems, and IT infrastructure, with specialties in Azure, AWS, and Office 365. Please ask any questions you have throughout the webinar, and I'll do my best to get to these. Otherwise, we'll pick them up at the end. During this webinar, we'll discuss Microsoft 365 and the product name change. In late April, Microsoft changed the names of their popular small business plans. The name changes have been rolling out over the 365 tenants over the last few months and should be now complete in all tenancies. The changes were made so products can be more reflective of their features in each subscription. I'll go into more detail on this on the next slide. Pay for what you require. This becomes very relevant for users of Office 365 E3 plans and the EMS products, who only need a few of those additional features. You could save around £9 per user per month by using the Microsoft 365 Business Premium plan. Expand your usage. If you're not fully utilizing SharePoint or planning your migration from file service to SharePoint, then you're not getting the most out of your 365 plan. SharePoint used to take months of preparation and multiple highly skilled SharePoint administrators to get things started and keep the lights on. Now with SharePoint Online, this is no longer the case. Since the release of SharePoint Online, Microsoft has taken all the pre-deployment planning and maintenance requirements away from you, leaving you to concentrate on the collaboration and productivity of your teams. Just like SharePoint, no doubt you've seen all the Microsoft adverts in the last 3 months spruiking the benefits of Teams. If you haven't, Teams is essentially Microsoft's version of Zoom. I, for one, will vouch for Teams as it's a massive step forward from Skype for Business that was formerly Link, which grew out of MSN Messenger. So it's got a long history and it's got continued development and it's seen massive growth over the last 3 months. On top of the video and audio conferencing element of Teams, Teams will bring together all the Microsoft 365 productivity tools together in one place, so you can share co-author documents live whilst in meetings or share content with external businesses you collaborate with, bringing all your calendars and your Teams channels into one place. Your responsibilities. So Microsoft provides the technology and the software via the subscription, but it's still your responsibility to protect your data. This includes getting the permissions right for who can access the data and applications, but also through to backing up your data and protecting it against accidental or malicious activity ending up in data loss. Microsoft provides layers of protections, including the recycle bins, but there are limitations on how these can be restored and how far back the retention policy is. Typically, it's around 90 days. Yes, if your 365 plan allows, you can set up legal hold and retention policies, but this should be done in conjunction with a backup solution for Office 365. When you bring into the mix of personal home computers and bring your own devices that aren't fully managed by IT departments, this increases the risk of malicious activity and non-compliance, whether that's GDPR or regulatory, and also data leakage and data loss. Perfect Image has partnered with Datto to provide a managed SaaS protection offering for our customers. We recently ran a webinar series that is now available on demand. It's called SaaS Protection, protecting your users' workloads for Office 365 and G Suite, and this can be viewed at your convenience if you want more detail around that particular topic. Securing your identity. In the past, you would consider your office building as your perimeter, and the first line of defense to protect your data and resources, as that building generally housed your infrastructure. But importantly, your users had to come to the office. You could control the environment, and the users typically sat in the same desk to access the resources via a computer the company provided and controlled. Once your users have a cloud presence, they now have a cloud identity. Securing the user's cloud identity should now be the primary focus, as the identity now provides access to the data and the resources. Finally, we'll look at Microsoft 365 Business Premium offering in more detail, with an in-depth look at the security features that are now bundled into this plan. For me, this plan provides the most value for money and should be considered the go-to plan for any business with under 300 users. Microsoft 365 Business Premium provides security for many layers. So it uses Azure AD P1. For devices, Intune. Application by using the likes of Windows Virtual Desktop and Azure Rights Management. Email protection via Office 365 Threat Protection Plan 1, and document security via Azure Information Protection Plan 1. Now, there'll be a lot more details in the later half of this webinar regarding those particular offerings. So the plans on screen are 3 of the most common plans that have had the names changed. Office 365 Business Essentials has become Microsoft 365 Business Basic. Office 365 Business Premium has become Microsoft 365 Business Standard. And Microsoft 365 Business has become Microsoft 365 Business Premium. Now, this one will cause the most confusion for smaller organizations, as it now has the name Business Premium, and this was the popular previous product that's now called Microsoft 365 Business Standard. There's some very important differences between Microsoft 365 Business Standard and Microsoft Business Premium, as Microsoft Business Premium now has the inclusions of Intune, Azure Information Protection, Windows Defender Plan 1, conditional access using Azure AD P1, and importantly, it has Windows Virtual Desktop usage rights. Now, Windows Virtual Desktop is Microsoft's new hosted Windows 10 multi-session experience. It's a very important and strategic product for Microsoft, and any business looking for a remote working solution, as this now could be and should be considered the gateway to the cloud. In the past, you may have been using remote desktop services that you had to manage and then maintain the entire environment. Your option would have your other option would have been virtual desktop infrastructure, so VDI. But in a cloud environment, this was expensive, as it was deployed on dedicated infrastructure per desktop, so per user. With Windows virtual desktops, you can now have groups of users, being one user up to 1,000 users, sharing the same session host, and user profiles are attached to the host instantly on login using FSx logic. Hosting costs vary, but they're also vastly reduced on kind of VDI or RDS. For example, a 50-user environment for Windows Virtual Desktop, you can expect to pay around £10 per user per month for the infrastructure hosting. Your only other cost is your 365 license that you may already have, and you use that already in your day-to-day productivity. The price per user per month vastly reduces as you add more users. So the other example is for a 500 user environment, it drops down to approximately £5 per user per month. This session won't have an in-depth look at Windows Virtual Desktop, also referenced as WVD, but I do have a session in the webinar series that is detailed, and it's got a detailed run through of what WVD is and the benefits, but it's important at this stage for the 365 license evaluation process, as some SKUs have rights to consume the WVD service. This is just another way to break down some of the name changes. Take note of the target audience and the SKU distinguisher. The Enterprise or Office 365 E3 and E5 plans have not had name changes. but they are also offered in a Microsoft and an Office 365 option. Licensing can be confusing. Up on the screen are 6 of the most popular 365 plans. Now there's over 20 different Microsoft and Office 365 plans, and there's about another 70 or 80 add-on licenses. Just like the previous examples, there are various plans you can choose from that provide users with the services and functionality they require, without overpaying for the service they don't need. This is where Perfect Image can work with you to help choose the right plans for your business. So Office 365 versus Microsoft 365. What's the difference? Well, generally speaking, Office 365 plans provide the productivity, the applications, whereas Microsoft 365 can be seen as a complete package. For the price point, Microsoft 365 Business Premium is a best value plan for SMB customers. If you look at the Microsoft 365 Business Premium plan and compare these against the common bundle of Office 365 and EMS, you'll see there's very little that the Business Premium plan doesn't cover, and also has the saving of around £9 per user per month. I'd like to point out that the chart on screen only has a section of a full comparison, but it points out the most common requirements. Office 365 and EMS are more often than not chosen to fulfill a specific requirement and apply to all staff to simplify license allocation. An example of this is EMS E3 may have been purchased for an Azure AD premium feature, or Intune or conditional access. But if all of the EMS E3 features are not required, then why pay for the license and apply it to all the users? The other example is if Office 365 E3 was purchased to use on remote desktop services, RDS, because it has the requirement for for shared computer activation services. Well, now Microsoft 365 Business Premium has this option also, and it's at a cheaper price point. Allocating the license to users has never been easier. For dynamic groups, by using dynamic groups, and the license allocation rules can be created using either standard AD or Azure AD attributes that assign and revoke the relevant licenses automatically, update a job role, and the licenses are automatically assigned, removed, updated. It's time to modernize and use all the tools and products you have available to you now. If you don't, your competitors will, and they'll have the advantage of cost reduction, added functionality, and the ability to work from any location in the world. Right now, remote working has never been more in the spotlight, albeit the common workplace right now may be your home office, but that may be your living room or your bedroom as well. Your employees' expectations to be able to continue to work remotely in a post-COVID world will continue to grow, as they expect to have the tools and the platforms that allow this. SharePoint is one of, if not the product you need to implement if you're wanting to move to a cloud native or full 365 deployment and retire your legacy file and application services. It's very common to find SharePoint is well and truly underutilized, and in many cases not utilized at all. Just about anyone can now administer SharePoint, and Microsoft has taken all the pre-deployment planning and maintenance requirements away from you, leaving you to concentrate on the collaboration and productivity of your teams. If you're not fully utilizing SharePoint or planning your migration from file servers to SharePoint, then you're not getting the most out of your 365 plan. Once you're free of your file servers, the next question is, why do I need Active Directory? Why not manage your users and devices via Azure Active Directory and Intune? If you're left with some legacy applications that require these services, that's when you can use Windows Virtual Desktop to provide a secure access for users who still require legacy applications via Windows 10 Desktop, or better yet, publish the applications and make them accessible via a web browser. Windows Virtual Desktop can be configured to automatically scale and shut down when not required. Just like SharePoint, no doubt, again, Teams If you're not using Teams, then you're not using all the benefits of the plans available to you right now, and you're potentially paying for another license for another product that you don't require. Teams has seen massive growth over those last few months. A couple of examples on screen are those of companies that have modernized and experienced massive growth. In some cases, their competitors have disappeared altogether. Now, I'm going to change the focus here to be more of a security focus and a bit of a cloud security discussion. With the user's identity and data moving into the cloud, increased mobile access, and cyber criminals getting more and more sophisticated, times have changed. Years ago, having a firewall, PC antivirus, and a good email filtering solution were sufficient to protect your business. Typically, your office four walls were the first perimeter. An attacker had to be in the building to gain access to your network. But many things have changed since those simpler days. User's identity and data is now in the cloud, rather than being inside your location on a network you control. But that's good news for users, as they have easier options for getting things done wherever they go. But it also means that you have more points of risk to think about. If they're using more and more mobile devices that they can lose. They're working from home, coffee shops, airports, trains, maybe more. The days gone by, but definitely the days coming up. Cyber criminals are going after you, after users increasingly with sophisticated ways. Phishing attacks that are getting harder and harder to recognize. Ransomware that twists the power of encryption to work against you, taking critical files hostage. Social engineering attacks that take advantage of people being busy. Cyber criminals have upped their game. You need to up your game too. But you don't have the time to become a cybersecurity expert. You don't have the time to stay a cybersecurity expert because of how things change on a month-to-month basis. Using the right Microsoft 365 features along with a managed service provider to manage, maintain, and stay up to date lets you focus on your business and your users' requirements. What would you do without your emails, calendar appointments, contacts, and files? Native recovery options may not meet your recovery time objective or recovery point objective. Part of your responsibility is to protect your data, and Microsoft even recommends using a third-party provider in their SLAs. There are hundreds of third-party solutions available. Perfect Image has partnered with Datto to provide options to our customers. So what's protected? In a nutshell, with a third-party solution like Datto, email, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams are all protected. You can choose from infinite or time-based retention options. Time-based is typically 12 months retention. Backups 3 times per day, roughly every 8 hours, depending upon the workloads going through Microsoft at that time. Costs, they start at under £2 per user per month. If this is the first time you've seen this chart or heard about the shared responsibility model, to simplify this, you can relate these as follows. So on-premise, it can be like your own car. You choose your car, you drive where you want, when you want, but you're responsible for everything. Insurance, maintenance, filling up with petrol. This has the largest upfront cost, and what you buy now may not meet your requirement in 1 to 2 years. IaaS, it's like a lease or a rental or a finance option. You still choose your car, you drive where and when you want, but now the insurance and maintenance is included in your payments. You can kind of upgrade as and when you require. As it's like a taxi, Uber. You can no longer choose the car. You can still choose your destination, but you're no longer in control of what route you want to take. You pay for it as you go. You pay for what you use. And then SaaS, it's like a bus. It's got a predefined route, and you simply get on and off when you want. You've selected the bus or the route, or in this case here, the SaaS offering that best suits you. This is the section within Microsoft Services Agreement that recommends the backup. So it's in section B, the last sentence, where it states, We recommend that you regularly back up your content and data that you store on services or store using third-party apps and services. Here's a few interesting stats as to why attacks are so successful. On average, it takes more than 99 days for a business to discover that they've been breached. 30% of users open emails from attackers, with 10% clicking on the links or attachments. 63% of passwords a week stolen or default. 53% of users accidentally share information. 71% of cyber attacks target a small business. 60% of small businesses close their doors after a cyber attack, and 55,000 devices are compromised by ransomware every month. Keep that one in mind for the next slide. 81% of all hacking-related breaches use compromised credentials. 75% of individuals use only 3 to 4 passwords across all of their accounts. And 88% of organizations feel they're losing control over their data. And the one in the bottom in the middle, as a business is hit with ransomware every 13 seconds, you must be able to recover. Microsoft 365 Business Premium gives peace of mind by helping safeguard your business. It does this in 3 ways. First, you get protection from sophisticated external cyber threats hidden in email attachments and links, and get cutting-edge defenses against phishing and spoofing attacks, ransomware, and other advanced malware attempts. Second, you gain more control over your company, your data, and your documents. Protection from data leakage, helping you to prevent sensitive information like NI numbers and customer credit card numbers from being shared outside your business. Control the access to the documents, even after those documents have been shared outside your company. Third, you can manage the apps, data, documents on devices, and documents on devices that access your company data, regardless of whether the device type or operating system, iOS, Mac, Android, Windows. Microsoft Business Premium helps you manage those devices. All these capabilities draw upon Microsoft's security investments, over $1 billion annually, and is built on enterprise products like Intune, Azure Information Protection. Microsoft's been adding capabilities to further simplify offerings each quarter, and this is based upon customers and partners given feedback, but also as the threat landscape changes. It's key for a business. It's a key benefit of having a cloud-hosted, subscription-based security solution. With Microsoft 365 Business Premium, you can quickly implement a cloud-based security solution that stays current and protects your business from the latest threats in phishing, ransomware, and malware. Microsoft Business Premium is a single integrated solution that brings together the best-in-class productivity of Office 365 with the advanced security to help a SMB customer with less than 300 employees securely run and grow the business. Now, I say less than 300 because that's the tier for when you basically tip over and you have to then move on to using the likes of the Microsoft 365 E3 plan for 301 users forward. Cloud offerings are rapidly developing and the security landscape is ever changing. Businesses don't have time to assess all the products they have available. And when that happens, and what happens as the product develops or is retired. Typically, IT resources are already stretched and don't have the time to do this or the tools, and products are constantly changing. Understanding and choosing the right plan with the protection and security that is required in a cloud-first model is critical. Protecting the identity is number one. It should be the number one priority, as this is the entry point to the data and the resources. Zero trust is a methodology used when protecting your data and resources. It assumes that the user's credentials are already compromised. So the example here is a user's trying to access an application. So knowing who's requesting access is essential. Validate the user's identity explicitly. Don't infer from the environment. Whether the user logs in from a coffee shop or inside a corporate network, verify them in real time before you grant access. Use a strong authentication tool, such as the Microsoft Authenticator app for MFA. Use threat intelligence, but also factor in components such as device health, compliance status, application behavior, organization policies, data labels, and grant access before you grant access to the corporate resources. So we'll look at the technologies that can help you defend these components within your estate, starting with the identity and access management. So how do you protect a user's identity? The number one thing you can do is implement MFA for all users. MFA, multi-factor authentication. You should assume that the user's credentials have been compromised. So here's another example. Ashley Madison. People were using work accounts to hide their activities from their partners. But when the data breach occurred, many passwords were in common with 365 accounts, or some were targeted in phishing campaigns that were enough to get access to those other 365 accounts. If MFA was enforced, then over 99% of attacks, of the attacks to these ones, wouldn't have been able to gain access to those compromised accounts. MFA offerings are not equal. MFA tends to be user-based and is kind of more of your legacy MFA versus modern MFA, which is rolled into conditional access policies. So an example of a conditional access policy is we can create a policy that enforces MFA for a group of users. There might be Windows Virtual Desktop users, and it targets just that WVD service with the condition that any iOS, Windows, or Android device must be compliant. So compliance in this case means that the device must be enrolled in Intune and meet us a specific compliance policy in Intune. Now we can grant access but enforce MFA if the device isn't connected to a trusted company network. This type of policy gives you the control to meet a specific security requirement while not affecting the user's productivity. And finally, point 3 on the slide, self-service password reset portal. So you can provide your users with the ability to securely reset their own password using an MFA prompt, a phone call, or even a custom security questions. You can combine these to enforce the users are required to complete 2 tests before they can reset the password. So maybe questions and MFA. All right, so what we have here is an example of Intune and kind of how the MFA and MAM, so mobile application management, works. So Intune can kind of do 2 things, right? So it will do the device management for Windows and mobile devices, but then also you'll do the mobile application management for iOS and Android. Intune provides end-to-end device management for those Windows and mobile devices. So you create device configuration policies. So enforce BitLocker, set power schedules, deploy applications such as antivirus. But now you also create compliance policies. So you say, so the compliance policy kind of matches the device configuration policy. So you say compliance, it requires BitLocker. It requires the device to have endpoint protection. Firewalls must be enabled. These can be as complex or as entry level as you like, and they're always something that you need to maintain and always work on. Now you can link the compliance to conditional access. So this will ensure that when users connecting with a trusted, managed, and secure compliant device, they get access. If it's not compliant, so if it's a non-compliant device, then access is either blocked or they need to fix their device via the prompts before access is granted. The configuration of the compliance and device configuration policies is something that you create or we create with you to suit the group of users that you're targeting. You typically don't have one policy across your whole business. You have a different policy for finance, HR, general users, but it's up to you. It's up to you to how these need to work. So devices are managed in two ways. There's corporate and there's personal. So if you use bring your own devices to prevent data leakage on personal devices, you can restrict functions like copy, save to non-managed applications. So how does this work? So you'd create a policy that enforces the user to enroll the device into Intune to access company data and applications such as Outlook, email. Could be SharePoint, OneDrive, or any other specified applications. If the device is personal, then the business applications are effectively in a bubble. If the device is lost, stolen, or if you have a bad lever, you can enforce a remote wipe of the applications without affecting the personal data that's on that device. If a company supplied the device to the user, and manage that device, you have more control dependent upon the device itself, right? To enforce a complete remote wipe, or you can set it back to the factory out-of-the-box experience, ready for the next user. So what makes the device a kind of company versus personal? It typically depends on how the device is rolled into Intune. If it's user-initiated, it'll be deemed personal. If it's automated, such as deployed by autopilot, it'll be marked as corporate. Now, these settings can be changed in Intune by an administrator at a later date if required. So we move on to the next component here. So this is email security. So Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection and Data Loss Prevention are two tools that go kind of hand in hand to protect your data and safeguard your users. Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection Plan 1, also known as APT, is included in Microsoft 365 Business Premium Bundle. APT provides protection across Exchange, Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive. On screen is how APT works for email protection, for threats, analyzing for malicious URLs and attachments for emails. So the email is received by the 365 service. The email is processed by various antivirus engines. If it's suspicious, the email is exploded in a sandbox environment. If it's found safe or found not to be unsafe, it will then be passed to a safe links process again. So this ensures that the URLs included are safe to view. Data loss prevention is another tool and is kind of part of your email security, but it also moves over into your general SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams as well. So first of all, you create policies that will determine what data you need to protect in your business. Out of the box, there's currently 42 pre-created policies across financial, medical, and privacy. On top of these, you can create your own custom policies to target the data that is shared inside or outside the organization. You choose the action, block or report. There may be many legitimate reasons to share this type of content with external contacts, but if you do, you should not share the document, but as this is how you lose control of your data. You should share a link to the document with permissions for the intended recipient. And if it contains sensitive information, then the document should be protected with Azure Information Protection to ensure the document can't be saved, edited, forwarded, or even printed. Now, you can also set an expiry or revoke these permissions at the file or the link at any time as well. Legal hold, it's a feature that can be used to configure and protect data, and based upon how long the data needs to be protected or held for, whether it's a specific period or indefinitely. This will ensure that the data can't be deleted or it's retained based upon your retention policies. E-discovery helps you by enabling you to create cases so you can pull all relevant information for an investigation you're running from all Office 365 locations, whether that be SharePoint, email, Teams, Yammer, the list goes on. You can choose who has access to each e-discovery case, and you can also export the results or a report based upon the findings. I touched on this earlier on the email security slide, but information rights management, encryption and sensitivity labels works by allowing users to specify the sensitivity of the email they are sending. Rights management, you specify who can access the documents and what permissions they have. With sensitivity labels, you can mandate that an employee must add a label for every email they send. Or you can specify a default label, and optionally you can also add a condition that if the user lowers the sensitivity, they must provide justification. With encryption, you can specify the permissions, and the labels are also created at the same time the email is sent. So an example of that: if you create an internal label that has protection, which is encryption, it can be configured so that only users within the specified company domains can open the email. If the email is forwarded or sent on to an external user, they won't be able to view the content of the email, as they won't have access because they're not from that specific domain. But you can also create a label with encryption that enables emails to be sent to external users. They'll be able to open the email via a one-time password that they receive when they open the email. The same conditions to prevent them from printing or forwarding the email can also be applied. So let's look at Azure Information Protection in action, also called AIP. So the user applies protection to the document and sends an email. AIP encrypts the document and stores the key. The document link or email is then sent off to another user. The user opens the document. Azure Information Protection then sends back the decryption key, and then the user can now view the email or the document. As Microsoft 365 Business Premium bundles device management, identity security, and threat protection with the Office Productivity Suite, this is seen as a complete solution. All these products can be purchased separately or added to other 365 plans. The features that I've discussed are also part of the Plan 1 offering. This enables you access to the tools, but not automation. You can have threat protection and information protection and most other Office 365 plans in a Plan 2. This provides the automation so users no longer have to label emails and classify documents. Using AI, Microsoft now does the heavy lifting. You train the system, and from that point forward, kind of Big Brother will decide what's sensitive. It will apply the classification labels and what should be encrypted. Both Plan 1 and Plan 2 have access to reporting dashboards, so now you'll know what's been applied, and this allows you to administer and control and monitor, tweak, but importantly, you know where your sensitive data resides. If I ask you now, could you tell me that you understand your data, you know where your sensitive data is, and who has access to it? Now, I've spoken about Microsoft 365 Business Premium a lot, but it's not the only solution available. You might say, what about Microsoft 365 E3 or E5 or Office 365 E3 and E5 plans? Well, nothing that I've spoken about is not available with Microsoft E3 or E5. It's just at a reduced cost, as some features are not included, as it's targeted at SMB customers. Both E3 and E5 plans are a step up again on the Business Premium plan, but the main difference from the E3 to the E5 plans are around automation and Azure AD P2. So the automation comes in part, comes in way of the automatic data loss prevention and trainable classifiers. So it automatically tags the documents you have in SharePoint, OneDrive, and even on-premise file servers, and also allows third-party applications. So third-party products that you tie into your 365 environment. This takes away the issues from the users. This takes away from the issues of how do I enforce this in my business? No longer are the users required to classify the documents. The policies you've created automatically do this for you. So that's with your kind of E5 plan. Azure ADP2. So this adds in extra identity protection features, including risky sign-ins. So this is where it knows your location, the time of day, your login behavior. It's all analyzed. So an example of this: if you have a touchscreen device, right, but you always use your keyboard to sign in, and if one day you use your touchscreen to sign in, risky sign-in will be activated and it will prompt you for an MFA request, even though you're in the office and in a trusted network, because it's not your normal behavior. One more point to close out today also is you don't need a full Microsoft 365 E5 plan to get the security and compliance automation features. You can have a mix of Office 365, EMS, and advanced compliance and security plans to still achieve the goals while reducing costs. Ultimately, that's what we're here for, to work with you and to understand what outcome you're trying to achieve for your business and evaluate your 365 options. So if you're not using all the features you're paying for, I would ask why. These vastly improve the security over traditional methods and provide the ability to report upon your services. But also that you can then start to pass your Azure AD login and 365 usage over to Azure Sentinel, another product I won't talk about today, but it's kind of starting to implement the likes of a SIEM solution or a SOC service. Thanks for attending today.